Hello and welcome to Sunflower Sutras. I am a confused and anxious swarm of bees, and today I am here to talk to you about the latest from post-Dadaist author A.M. Hounchell, Zumanity. So this book is about a half-zombie attempting to survive the post-apocalypse while also retaining her humanity. Now, zombies aren't exactly in vogue anymore like they were, 5 years ago or so. Oh god, it's probably closer to 10 years. Oh god, the ravages of time. Anyway, what better time than to bring this trend back than now in 2020? What with the, everything. But all that aside, this book really does things a little differently. It's a bit of a fresh take on the formula, if you will. Most zombie fiction is very broad, very macro level stuff. So zombies are never zombies, right? Just like vampires are never just vampires, ghosts are never just a ghost, right? They're always something else. And zombies typically are not just zombies, they're also consumerism, they're also collectivism, they're also some political ideology that I don't agree with. And that's pretty much the standard for, well, pretty much all zombie fiction. Even when it's not intentional, that's still usually what it ends up being. Whereas Zumanity here, it's a much more personal story, thematically speaking. Lots of zombie stories are obviously very personal in terms of the characters, right? The characters are what are there that keep you interested. Even if the characters are what draw people in and keep people interested, the themes of most zombie stories are usually about society in general, these very high concept sort of things. Whereas Zumanity really is very personal, not just in that it's all told from the first person perspective of a single character, but also thematically. It's a very personal thing, right? The zombies aren't some big, broad, socio-political, abstract concept. The zombies in Zumanity are trauma, really, or people who have dealt with trauma. So the protagonist first turns into a zombie after being bitten and then falling off of the side of a building. And falling is then a recurrence throughout the entire book, from when she first turns all the way to the very end. So she's constantly reliving her own death. She's constantly reliving this horrible thing that happened. And the book is also jumping back and forth through time a lot. It's really Slaughterhouse-Five-Y. It's really tapping into that tradition of, I don't know if it's a tradition really, I mean Kurt Vonnegut did it, but using time travel kind of as a analogy for a traumatic experience and what it's like to try to live life after that. And so instead of the zombies just being this, mindless, faceless horde of people who believe in a thing that I don't like, we have zombies being traumatized people passing on that trauma to others. And so much of this book is about the protagonist learning that that doesn't have to define her, that she doesn't have to continue that cycle. Our protagonist, Carol, is constantly having to deal with this side of her that just wants to hurt people, that just wants to ruin people, that just wants to make people like her. And this zombieism, it affects her perception of time, it affects her perception of other people, it affects her perception of reality. Was I just like her? Was I just repeating my nature? I was cursed to be a living tomb. The cycle of abuse and how trauma changes people is really at the heart of this story, and it's present everywhere throughout the whole thing. Of course, this book isn't all doom and gloom. In fact, I'd say it's very hopeful, especially for apocalyptic fiction. Someday it will be better. Someday everything will be green, and people will be better off. How do you know? I don't. I have faith, and I can't know I'm right. But I want to live long enough to find out, and we can't know until we get there. And I would say that that is, if anything, probably the thesis statement of the whole novel. Yes, the world around us will change us, and often for the worse. But we can be better, we can do better, and our environment doesn't have to have the final say in who we are as people. This book is also gay, which I guess is the real lesson here, the real moral, the takeaway, that the quickest way to get me to read your book is to make it super gay. Carol is gay, and not just in a wink wink nudge nudge read between the lines kind of gay, but she is explicitly a lesbian. And the feelings of being closeted and internalized homophobia make up a big part of this book. Zombieism doesn't work, at least not in my opinion, as an allegory for these things in the same way that it works as an allegory for trauma, but the emotional truth of internalized homophobia is absolutely there in this book, and the emotional truth of being in the closet and being afraid of people clocking you is absolutely present here. No one knew for sure, but some of them expected me of being ethereal, something else, and they were right. There's this really good scene in the book, and this is where this really became, I think, really obvious to me, when she's walking along the side of the road, and this is after she's been turned into a half zombie, and she gets picked up by this guy in a truck. And she and the driver are just sitting there in silence, and the whole time she's just having this internal freak out about, if she's going to do anything that'll make him realize that she's a zombie, right? If she'll out herself as a zombie. Something else that really hit home for me was how throughout the book, she's kind of struggling with this zombie nature, and she just so dramatically goes back and forth between euphoria and shame when it comes to her being a zombie. Um, 1 minute she'll be, you know, eating brains, and she feels amazing, and she doesn't understand why she would ever want to do anything else. And she feels everything feels clearer. Everything makes sense. She just feels so much better and so free, and she just feels so much like herself. And then mere moments later, she's beating herself up about, you know, eating someone, right? And obviously, right, um, eating people is generally a bad thing. I think. I don't know. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. Um, but I think a lot of media analysis can be a bit too literal minded, I guess, at the risk of sounding pretentious. I'm not trying to be. But even though it isn't true, this feeling of monstrousness is something that a lot of queer people can relate to. And this rapid fluctuation between pride and self loathing is also something that a lot of queer people can relate to. Also, this book contains the line, "I'm always planning on doing something stupid," and if that's not the most accurate description of the gay agenda in its entirety, then I don't know what is. All in all, while I don't think that this is Hounchell's most entertaining book, I think that honor goes to the Running Out of Time series. This is quite possibly his best written book so far. Um, and I would even say that it's unique, perhaps, within his bibliography, in that it lends itself quite well to analysis, whereas other books of his, such as Running Out of Time, um, really defy and actively reject any sort of deeper meaning or attempt to find deeper meaning within them. And with that, I would, as usual, like to thank Katie, Heather, and poet Jen Harris for their continued support. And I would like to thank everyone who bothered to sit through all of my rambling. Slangafol. Until next time.